which shows the reality of life, conception through natural death. So it's great that we were able to have that. Tonight we're going to talk more about the nuts and bolts apologetically of why we believe what we believe. And so you're doing all that work. It's very well involved. Let's begin with a prayer in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hey everybody, I'm Andrea, for those who don't know me. Who here went to the movie? All right, so because originally I was going to go a little bit different of a route, because we all saw the movie, or most of us saw the movie, I really wanted to focus on apologetics in the sense of how to talk about pro-life issues in today's world, because that can be a really sticky area, no matter what you believe or how firmly you believe it. So that's what this is going to focus on as we go. So, this is my first time using this, so okay, great. All right, just to level set us. So I just have a couple of facts just to give you guys an idea of the reasons for abortions, how late they're allowed to be done, and what that means. So this is something from a poll from 2015. So the state of Florida requires them to state a reason for the abortion. So you can see down here, no reason is your biggest, the mom's giving no reason is 92%. And then when you come down to the rest, you've got the social or economic reasons, and then all under 1%, you've got the biggest arguments from pro-choicers are that there's a serious abnormality in the baby, mother's mental health, mother's physical health, rape, mother's life's in danger, or incest. So, and again, this is from all of the abortions that Florida had provided. And it really goes to show that these big arguments are a very small amount of cases that actually go through. This is another poll just to kind of show a countrywide reason of abortion. Again, you've got other that hovers around 6%, but all of these reasons in here: not ready for a child, can't afford a baby, done having children, which that one right there is to me very bothersome, because that means they already have children and are deciding to abort one later in life. Doesn't want to be a single mother, not mature, would interfere with education. All of those are convenience-related issues and really fall into the no response of the Florida poll, and that's in my opinion. All right, so the current fetal age restrictions. So less than half of the states in the country have fetal age restrictions on abortion, but the ones that do, the most common ones are 20 weeks gestational age, obviously a baby. The next one is 22 weeks gestational age or 20 weeks post-fertilization. It's the same age when it comes to the baby. And I chose to take a picture this is actually a picture of a preemie in London who was born in 2017 at 22 weeks, and he survived. Survived his birth, is actually doing well, very limited complications. And the last one is 24 weeks. Again, another picture of a preemie that was born at 24 weeks. And I don't even need ultrasound pictures to kind of show how big those babies are and how much of a life they should have a chance to live. So, all right, so to the arguments. Pro-choice argument number one, you're taking away women's rights. We hear this all the time. When you're trying, and I don't want to say argue, but it really is an argument, but when you're trying to talk to somebody about why you're pro-life or why we should have restrictions on abortions, or in our view, not have them at all, these are some of the responses that you can get. So the first one up. This is not an argument about women's right to choose. It's an argument about taking away the right to end life. So when you're, I mean, the thing is pretty clear. We're not trying to take away women's rights, we're trying to save lives of, you know, babies who have not had a chance to be born yet. Next, for us especially, if we believe that life begins at conception, then abortion is killing an innocent human being, and there's no argument that can justify the act. And where life begins, obviously, is a whole other argument. We'll get to that. So 50% of unborn children are girls, roughly. Girls that have their own unique DNA makes them their own person and they're separate from their mother. So if you're using this logic of you're taking away women's rights, half of the babies aborted every year are girls, meaning that you're taking away their right to live, which is taking away their right in general. I never actually thought about it like that before, but it's a pretty cool way to think about when they talk about taking away women's rights, let alone guys. I mean, guys should have rights too, to be honest. Let's be. I thought that was a pretty cool argument. I'm sure it would get a lot of pushback, however, it doesn't mean it's not right. So next up, pro-choice argument number 2. Well, let me stop. Any questions, comments? Sure.
How do you know 50% are girls?
Well, it's 50-50 shot of being a girl.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought there was like, oh wait, that they were testing or something.
No. That's just going from the statistic that you have a 1 in 2 chance to be a boy and a girl. Neither one of us seem to go with those statistics, but you have 3 girls and I have 3 boys, so hey. Still boys, that's right.
Is that?
So pro-choice argument number 2. Women will die from unsafe abortions. So just because something is illegal or unsafe, does that mean we should make it legal? Examples being drug use, domestic abuse, child abuse. And I know that child abuse especially, that seems harsh, and that's probably something that you would get back in an argument, but we're not talking about child abuse. We're talking about killing a child. So I think that's the ultimate form of child abuse when it comes down to it. But again, you know, drug use is totally unsafe, you know, especially your harder drugs. And we wouldn't even think about legalizing that. At least I hope we won't think about legalizing that in the future. So this one says Dr. Bernard Nathanson. He was co-founder of the National Abortion Rights Action League. They admitted that they invented figures to make the claim that thousands of women were dying from unsafe abortions. When the studies were actually done, most illegal abortions were performed in doctors' offices, not in alleys, which is what you hear a lot. Like, if we put more restrictions on abortion, you're going to end up in, you know, these people are going to have coat hanger abortions in a back alley. It's just not the case. If something's illegal, people are going to find a way to do it. That doesn't mean that you don't restrict. That you don't restrict it, because you're always going to have this. People do illegal drugs. You know, people steal. People everything. It doesn't matter if there's a law against it or not. So women who have abortions are more likely to have mental health issues and commit suicide than those who give birth. There's been a lot of studies on this. When I was researching this, what's really funny, or not funny, is that the pro-choice side, you can't find the information. You cannot find the information to studies such as these listed on their sites. I was reading something that said that I think it took only 7 studies to have a warning put on cigarette labels that smoking can increase the risk of birth defects or low birth weight. It's bad for an unborn baby. There, I believe they said at the time, and I think it was a 2014 article, there were I think it was over 70 studies about women who have abortions having mental health issues or committing suicide. Some said as high as 154% more likely to commit suicide. But none of the pro-choice sites or organizations will bring that forth or show that information. Because they say that, whether they don't agree with the studies or whatever other excuses they have. This is another one. So there's also studies that show that induced abortions, and we're not talking about miscarriages, increase the risk of breast cancer. This is another highly disputed study. When you find it on anything that is pro-choice or funded by the government or government websites, they do talk about this, but they will say that it's inconclusive. They'll go through what kind of studies are done and a lot of different information, but they will not conclusively say that this is the case. The reason that this is, or the science behind this is that when you become pregnant, when you're getting ready to produce breast milk and such, those genes start to multiply, cells start to multiply. So when you go through a full pregnancy, they stop at a certain point when they're mature, and that's not an increased risk of breast cancer. When you have a miscarriage, again, a natural miscarriage, again, stops the growth, and the hormones were actually not there to increase your risk. The two things that can increase your risk of breast cancer are hormonal contraceptive, because it's raising estrogen in your body, and the induced abortions, where these cells have already started multiplying, but then they're stopped all of a sudden, and they don't have the chance to mature. And that extra estrogen is what can actually cause the cancer cells to develop or mutate. So that's what the studies show, and they will label it and tell you about it when you're taking oral contraceptives, but you will not hear about it as an increased risk on all different sites. Any questions before I keep going? So our next big argument, lives will be ruined by unplanned pregnancies. So it is, a response to that is, it is a disservice to women to imply that unplanned pregnancies destroy lives. That is basically telling somebody, just because you become pregnant, you can't finish school, you can't get a job, you can't make your life a good one to live. It doesn't matter if you're 16 or 17 or in your 20s. And the highest majority of age range to get abortions are actually women in their 20s. It's not teenagers. It's not people in their 30s. It's people in their 20s. It's those people who are either still in school or just about to start a career. And it may not be easy, because all of us have stories, all of us know what it can be like, but it doesn't mean that you end the life. Things are hard, we don't have our crosses to bear. So the majority of unplanned pregnancies are a result of poor choices, and those should not be fixed, quote unquote, by ending it instantly. I think this is a big one. I know the numbers show that 51% of unplanned pregnancies end in abortion, generally by singles, women who aren't in a relationship or aren't married. Yeah, it's going to make your life a lot harder, but again, that's not a reason to end it. Embarrassment or inconvenience is not a reason for an abortion, period. I think this is a pretty good response for anyone who says a life's going to be ruined. It's not a reason to kill somebody. It's not. Yeah, you might, if you're a teenager, you may be embarrassed. If you're in your 20s, it may be a huge inconvenience, but there are a lot of other options out there for them. in the case of rape. So this is a big one, but you saw on the earlier slides that this is less than 1% of cases. This really goes to the baby shouldn't die for the crimes of the father. Everyone deserves a chance at life. None of us want to be judged by something that's happened in the past. I mean, a perfect example that father brings up is, original sin, right? Yes, there was original sin, but that doesn't mean that we can't overcome it. And we're given a chance to overcome it. It's the same logic that goes here. And an important or interesting note here is that rape victims actually choose abortion at half the rate of the average of their pregnancy. So it was depending on the study that they performed, between 15 and 25% of rape victims. Again, a very small pool in the total amount of abortions that are done every year. Only 15 to 25% need abortion versus 51% of your regular unplanned pregnancy. A lot of rape survivors will say that, say this exactly, that it wasn't the baby's fault and they're going to give them a chance, whether they give them up for adoption or keep them. And there are a lot of testimonials out there about victims keeping their babies, and they realize it's not a product of their father. It actually helps them heal because they see something good that came out of something horrible. Anyone before I keep going? All right. Number 4. Religion should not influence laws. I love this one because religion is really based on morality and not. So, the killing of any other human being violates natural law, governing law, and religious teaching. Yes, it's religious teaching for most of Christianity that we don't have abortions. That's true. But that's not religion influencing abortion laws. Our natural law, we say the age of reason is what, like 7 or 8 years old? We know not to kill somebody at that point. That has nothing to do with our religious affiliations. Generally speaking, people know killing is wrong. Killing other human beings is wrong. Governing law, again, just regular laws out there. We don't steal, we don't kill, we don't. I lost another example, but yes, religious teaching is part of it. But again, it's not the sole factor. Many of our basic laws out there follow the 10 Commandments, and none of those should be thrown out just because it's based in religion. And religion is, in my opinion, based in human morality. So it's just not an argument. So again, this is one of those arguments that brings up when do we in fact become human? And all science shows, if you remove personhood from the equation, all the science is there showing that we obtain all our DNA as soon as we conceive. So at that point, we're human. You can't deny the fact that we're human. We will be human. Yes, we may be some people say, oh, there's only the potential for human life. No, it's human life. I guarantee you when, people are getting their dogs or, breeding dogs, bringing their cats, that's little baby puppies and kittens that are getting, that are producing. It's just science that as soon as we are conceived, we put the, sperm and egg together, and that's what makes human life. Do you have anything to add? I don't know, Father, if you have anything to add to this one?
I was just thinking of that last comment there, that, when Roe v. Wade was, when that was pushed through, I think Roe, I forget her name, what was her real name?
I don't remember her real name, but she
But
actually
Yeah.
did not have an abortion.
She also, she was really conned by the lawyers and the people with that agenda. But she actually repents of being involved in the court case that way. But when they were deciding that case, they really didn't have the science or the ultrasounds or anything like we have today. I mean, they have these, Cindy, just had her grandchild, and you're able to see these kids amazing, like 3D ultrasounds, and you're able to really see that it is human life. We used to have a sister who would talk to the kids on abortion, and she was from the Franciscan Sisters of the Eucharist, and she would actually show pictures of babies and famous people. And she would say, who are these people? These famous, you recognize these people as babies? And they'd say, oh no, we don't recognize these people. And then they would show the adult picture, the famous picture. And they'd say, oh yeah, they're the same people, but they look different, right? So it's the same human life, you just grow up, you look different. But it is a person.
My daughter said she thinks, from what she saw, a lot of these girls don't think it's a person. And I told her that, places like Planned Parenthood are not telling them. Young girls, I would think they're more susceptible to believing that, but on average, I would think your average woman would know what's going on inside as a human being, but I think for young girls in general that they're not being told by these places that they're going to.
No, they're definitely not being told. And we saw that in the movie, and I firmly believe that a lot of those people who work there, just like Abby Johnson said, they don't even really understand it. They don't really get it. They're there to help. They're not there to ruin lives. They're not thinking that what they're doing is wrong, and they may not even know what's actually happening. The most moving part of that movie, and I know a couple of you didn't see it, but most of you didn't, it wasn't anything that was gory or anything like that. It was really that ultrasound. It was the one they were doing on the ultrasound that was the worst.
Where she had help.
Yeah, where she had to help.
Right, because it really wasn't,
It wasn't
for her, it
the
wasn't real, she
that-
didn't really realize
Exactly.
what was going on, until
Exactly.
she actually took part in it.
Exactly. That ultrasound was, to me, the most moving moment of that film.
Well, I think when you watch the movie, the important point is what they make about Planned Parenthood and abortion providers is the dehumanizing of life, because what essentially happens is there are even talking heads or people on radio or TV clump of cells, like it has no value, and this obviously goes into all the other teachings of the church, IVF and all that, and what they're basically stating, nobody has an attachment in that way, that it's not like real life.
And what's funny is that the clump of cells argument, you could at one point call the baby a clump of cells. It's a baby, it's going to be human, but it is a clump of cells. But by the time everyone finds out they're pregnant, it's not a clump of cells anymore. They say that babies' heartbeats actually, you can't detect them, but they actually start beating at, I think, three weeks. By 6 weeks, any of us, I know we had fetal heartbeats at 6 weeks.
But even, we're all clumps of cells.
Yeah, we're all clumps of cells. I was just
that are informed by a soul, which makes us human.
Yep. And yeah, I was just talking
But
visually.
I think it's 8 weeks. I think it's 8 weeks that you have everything you need, right?
You actually start, I believe 8 weeks maybe that you have everything, but at 8 weeks you actually can see hands,
And then you just get,
feet, head. Your brain and your neurological system, I think, starts growing at 3 weeks around the same time that the heart is there, so that starts beating. But yeah, the only time you can visually look and say, oh, maybe it's a clump of cells, is like day 1 and 2 of fertilization. It's nothing that anyone knows they're pregnant. But as you point out, yes, we're all just clumps of cells. So
I think at 8 or 9 weeks now, you can tell it's boy or girl.
10 weeks of the blood test.
Blood test.
Yep. But I don't like that, because then you start getting into the gender selection, which they've already started to find happening, especially in other countries. Terminating because and you have every right now, you have every right to terminate, doesn't matter the reason, up until 24 weeks. And even past 24 weeks, even Connecticut's one of those states, there's no there's no limit on, as long as it's health of the mother, we'll get into that a little bit more later, there's no limit on when you can have an abortion. Which, if you look at those pictures of 22-week, 24-week babies, it's, I mean, all of it's bad, none is worse than the other, but just seeing pictures of those babies, it's sad. It's incredibly sad. All right. Pro-choice argument number 5. This is how you know I made this presentation. Pro-lifers are crazy, men, cruel, etc. So this is just the, I'm going to throw at you that I'm not going to listen to you. There's no way that you're right. I really wanted to change this to say crazy, cruel men and not have comments. But I thought that would be funny. I know, not a funny topic, sorry. All right, so our responses to this. And I made sure to put this one first. Men are entitled to position on both sides. There's actually studies starting to come out about what abortion does to men, because honestly, they have no choice in this. I'm sure there's been, in fact, I know there's been some court, I think there's been some court battles in the past about, men trying to stop an abortion, etc. But they have no entitlement to say what's going to happen to their child. But on top of that, there's more women working in the pro-life industry than men. And gender honestly does not correlate to pro-life or pro-choice views. Your moral views are what correlate to your pro-life and pro-choice. And it's been, the latest polls that are out there, it's really almost a 50-50 split of who's pro-life and who's pro-choice. Pro-choice would like you to believe that everyone out there is pro-choice, but I think there's a lot of people, I'm going crazy with this laser. I think there's a lot of people out there that won't admit that they're pro-life. They just won't admit it in public, even if they are in their minds, or they're pro-life for them. I had this conversation with a friend of mine just last week, and by the end of our conversation, she's like, well, she's a Catholic, and she's like, you changed my mind. I'm like, you can't just say it's just, you're only pro-life for you. I used to say that. I used to say that all the time. I've been pro-life my entire life. It didn't matter, even when I wasn't religious whatsoever. It's just a cop-out. It really is a cop-out. If you, go ahead.
You have to shift the whole argument and simplify it. It's not a choice, it's a child.
Yep.
And you have to stay with that argument. Because what they do is they obfuscate the whole thing by bringing in all of these other issues. It's a life. It's a life.
Right.
We learned that sophomore year in high school. Anybody who took biology knows it's a life.
You're probably changing those textbooks. That's when we need to stop. No, you're absolutely correct. And I mean, bottom line is that it is a life. You can't end it. But we need to be prepared a little bit more with, or knowing what they're going to throw at us, and try and kind of have a different way to, other than a different view or explanation, other than a brick wall, to go back to these people, or they're never going to listen. They're never going to listen. That much I can tell you. Some of them are still never going to listen, but you may be able to swing people who are morally, who were like me or like my friend that I was just talking about, or even people who think they're pro-choice, and then once you start talking to them and tell them about all these different scenarios and situations that, you know what, maybe I'm not. I saw someone very sick.
Well, what you were saying, to finish completely that thought, is what you were saying is usually it's, I'm pro-life, I would never have an abortion, but I believe in the right of
To
women
right to choose, yep.
to choose what they want to do, and that is
Not
where,
pro-life. It's not pro-life.
that's right,
And that's
it's not
what you-
pro-life, and that they don't,
Yep. And that's a hard pill for them to swallow. Again, that's going back to the conversation I had. Had I just come back and said, well, then you're not pro-life, that conversation probably would have ended right there. You know what I mean? As in to not get into a fight with a friend of mine, or not that we're going to fight, but rather than just say that, which is 100% true, we had an hour conversation just about other things, bringing up other points of view. And by the time I was done talking, she barely had said anything. Other than, and I was shocked when she came back and was like, well, you know, I was actually talking about this talk. She's like, well, you changed my mind, so, you know, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. You know, maybe it does work. So as much as we want to just come back with our viewpoints and it's wrong, it's a baby, it's wrong, like I was saying in the beginning, we won't get any, I don't think, we're not going to get anywhere if we do that. I won't sugarcoat it. We're just not going to get anywhere. Because we're not, honestly, right now, in my mind, we need to go after the hardcore pro-choice who have complete control over the media, etc. Perfect example of that is, so there's states now that are trying to pass a heartbeat law, which means as soon as you can detect a heartbeat, I'm sure you've heard about it in the news recently, as soon as you can detect a heartbeat, they want to ban abortion. Georgia's one of them, and then you've got the Hollywood left coming in because only their opinion matters, right? Oh, they've got 50 different actors who won't work in Georgia if it's passed. Georgia's, I guess, the Eastern Hollywood. There's a ton of sets in Georgia. It brings in a bunch of business. So they're trying to strong arm them into not signing a bill because it's bad for business. And for anyone who's wondering, it's Alyssa Milano who's heading that up. I mean, Jay used to have pictures of her on his wall. But, you know, she's not, it's crazy. So.
Yeah, there's another argument from the Constitution of the United States that we all have the right to life, liberty,
Yeah,
and
we all
pursuit
have
of
to-
happiness, and you're taking away a life for the pursuit of happiness, if you want to call it that, which is secondary or tertiary to life. Life is number one.
Yeah.
So if it's a life, and that's the first thing, then you can't take it by the Constitution of the United States. And that's why any law that says you can is really an unjust law.
Right. And when it comes down to the person, like being a human or being a person or what have you, and when that actually happens, you know, there's been plenty of times in history, and I'm sure you've heard this argument, where we have put a value on human life. We did it in slavery. It was done during, you know, the Jewish, you know, when Hitler had all the Jews in concentration camps. I mean, you can't, it's never ended well. And there was someone who did a talk on that exact fact, and where the kids these days aren't even really being taught all of that about what happened, about what happens when you put a label on someone's humanity. And they're not going to know that this is putting a label on someone's humanity because they're not taught about it. They don't hear about it because, you know, it's going to go against that choice agenda. Just going to move along. This is my big one. Truth is often confused for cruelty. So, pro-life groups are often criticized for showing pictures of aborted babies, which I am saving you from in this presentation. But it's not cruel. Those are pictures of what happens. And just because it's true doesn't mean it's cruel. And it should really make anyone who sees it uncomfortable, and that's what it does. It makes them uncomfortable. You go talk to any pathologist, I know we have some that are in our parish, who have to deal with the end result of the abortions, because they do, every single one of them. It's not a pretty picture. It's just not. And to show those pictures, while very disconcerting and uncomfortable, and much more than uncomfortable, it doesn't make us cruel by doing it. It's just trying to get the truth of what has actually happened out there.
Well, I think high school girls should be shown those pictures.
So,
And I talked with someone and they said, oh, their parents would probably be against their watching that kind of thing. But to me, that's what makes it real.
So I think,
I mean,
I'll
to
say
see
that,
what,
I'm going to amend that a little bit, or challenge that a little bit. I don't necessarily think that every high school student should see that, or even see the movie. However, any high school student who is thinking about getting an abortion should be shown that, or shown that. And I'm not saying that they can't handle it, but,
Actually,
you know.
I don't know, I don't really, I can tell you personally, that's a rough thing to be shown. I think the way that, you know, the 40 Days for Life
Mhm.
showed it, you know, where Abby's at the gate and she the
Yep.
fence, and she talked that girl away to drive away. You show a confused person this stuff on the way in, they don't want to see that. You know, they're already, you know, just the way she said, you know, always the Grim Reaper out there. But
Right,
the other people who were praying and everything had a more profound effect, is you know, charging up. And I mean, this is where all these laws came, and a lot of people came shooting doctors. I mean, that two wrongs don't make a right, so I just,
no, not at all.
I think better to show a high school or a girl who comes, like when we show them these sex ed movies
Yep,
in high school, to show them this is what happens when you make a wrong choice and then compound it with a further wrong choice, then maybe. And boys too, we should be shown the same picture.
oh, I think they definitely should all be, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
you gotta
more
have
like-
that kind of education
That,
in
I
school.
really think the movie does a much better, that type of movie or that way of going about it does a much better job of saying, here's these pictures. You know, so maybe I misspoke before, or didn't get across what I meant. The movie that we watched will do far more for anybody than showing them a
Well,
picture.
I was saying maybe you should
Yeah.
bring high school students to see this.
Oh, yeah, so I 100%.
And
yeah,
so she
100%
said,
agree with
well, I don't think parents would agree with
that.
that.
Parents want to protect their
And
children.
maybe, like the Catholic school maybe wouldn't agree with that either, I don't know.
I don't know.
You know, I think the best way to show, without getting bloody and all that, is to show these 3D ultrasounds, because it shows the actual face of the baby, like you're inside the womb.
Yeah.
And that, you can't deny it's not a baby,
Like
even
the
if
first pictures that I showed in the
Yeah,
beginning.
6 or 8 weeks.
You know, I really did want to make this something that kids could see. And those types of pictures aren't going to be labeled as cruel by others, and maybe we'll get a more of a response, or be able to do it. The problem is getting in there, right? That's the problem, and that's one of the things that we have to somehow figure out how to do, because you really can't. You know, and to say that this movie was rated R, but a 15-year-old can go in and get an abortion. I can understand the movie being rated R after seeing it. However, anyone who's planning on doing that argument is up in the air, that goes up in smoke.
And then another powerful point of the movie I thought was when she lifted the hand of the fetus that had been aborted. I mean, that,
Which you could tell with,
yeah.
and it just goes to show how young they are when they truly are. Look human. So this goes to your point about the protesters. So no pro-life organization that's rooted in Christianity is going to hold anything but a peaceful protest. The media likes to cover the crazy, and I loved in the movie when they were showing that side and they were showing the prayer side. And you even saw a couple of rosaries, so you even included us. I don't know where 40 Days of Life comes from, you know, religious affiliation-wise, but those peaceful protests are the majority of what you're going to see. And anyone who's doing those protests that are, you know, threatening, scary, all that, they're not helping the situation. They're not helping the situation. And I personally would be okay with that not being allowed. They're not going to be able to make us move forward in, you know, the pro-life movement whatsoever. And generally speaking, it's the protesters that are more likely to be at the abusive end of the violence. And by protesters, I mean the peaceful protesters, not the crazy protesters. But like you said, when she came to the fence at the end, or even when they were coming to the fence in the beginning, whoever portrayed the main girl there that was working for 40 Days for Life, she was just still there and nice every single time. And that's what it should be. You can't be going at these people who are just scared, generally speaking. It doesn't matter if they're in their 20s. They're scared, you know, or even in their 30s. It doesn't matter whether they should know better. They generally need help, and being quote-unquote crazy is not going to help. They're just going to be running straight in there, and they're definitely won't listen. All right. So moving on. All right, so this is, I don't know if this is going to play in it. For the sake of messing anything up. So the next argument, and this is just like a 6-minute video, for saving the life of the mother. That's another big argument that is used, again, you saw in the beginning, that's not a very common necessity. And this guy, and if you recognize these two, so this was the doctor in the room at the movie of Unplanned, and this was the reporter, the girl that played the reporter. This girl is actually, I forget her name, but she actually went undercover when she was young to Planned Parenthood to kind of, because they were doing undercover investigations of what actually happens there. And this doctor was an abortion doctor that left his practice and now is pro-life. And I can't explain it better than this video here. You guys hear it?
One of the biggest arguments of pro-abortion activists is that abortion is medically necessary. What's your position on that?
We hear all the time how abortion is, including especially late-term abortion, is necessary to save women's lives. Nothing could be further from the truth. I spent 9 years working at a tertiary medical center. I mean, there are only certain hospitals in the country that are designated to take care of the really, really high-risk pregnancies. You don't want to duplicate the effort, it's expensive. So these hospitals get referrals from the surrounding area. Albany Medical Center in Albany, New York, where I worked, was one of them. I was faculty at the hospital for 9 years. And I saw hundreds of cases of really severe pregnancy complications, cancers, heart disease, intractable diabetes out of control, toxemia, pregnancy out of control. And I saved, in those 9 years, I saved hundreds of women from life-threatening pregnancies. And I did that by delivering them, by ending their pregnancy by delivery, either induction of labor or cesarean section.
Delivering the baby.
Delivering the baby. And I always tell people, in all of those years, the number of babies that I that I was obligated to deliberately kill in the process was 0, none. And I'll give you an example. The key point about late-term abortion that so many people miss is that it takes days to prepare the cervix. This is not a natural situation by any stretch. If you're going to dilate the cervix sufficiently, that starts off essentially as a pinpoint, large enough to dismember or tear apart a baby this big, that cervix has to be dilated, and that can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. And especially when you're talking about later-term pregnancies. Most life-threatening situations, the vast, vast majority of life-threatening situations in pregnancy are not going to arise until 24, 25, 26 weeks of pregnancy and higher. And when you're talking about that, you're talking about abortion procedures that take 2 and 3 days to prepare the cervix. And I'll give you a classic example. This is a real case. A lady came to the hospital at 27 weeks of pregnancy with severe toxemia. Her blood pressure, you know, normal blood pressure is about 120 over 80. Her blood pressure was 220 over 160. Okay, this lady would literally be minutes or hours away from a stroke. What do you do in a situation like that? We stabilized her, brought her back, did a cesarean section, had her delivered within an hour of arriving at the hospital. She and her baby did just fine. Now, let's say we wanted to use abortion to save her life, okay? If with that kind of blood pressure and that kind of problem, if we waited 2 to 3 days to get her cervix prepared, she would never make it. She would have been dead. And that's a perfect example. You never need late-term abortion to save a woman's life. If necessary, you accomplish the delivery. Now, did every one of those children make it because they were preterm? No. But they all had a chance, and most of them did make it.
What you're saying is so amazing, Dr. Levitina, because a lot of people never hear this. They assume when abortion is brought up that it's necessary to kill that child, sometimes to save the mother's life. But you're saying it may be necessary to deliver the baby, but you never have to purposely go and kill that child.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So why is this such a a huge argument for pro-abortion advocates to say it's necessary to kill to save the life of the mother.
That argument I don't understand. In my experience over almost a decade, I never had to kill deliberately a single child to save a woman's life during pregnancy. There's a wider discussion though. Politically, always listen very carefully to the words that are being used. You know, we need to pass law X, Y, and Z because it protects women's health. Bill Clinton, I will be happy to sign a ban on partial birth abortion so long as it includes an exception on women's health. Well, what do they mean? Now, I have a law degree, and every lawyer knows that every single word has meaning. And what Roe didn't do was define the word health. Doe versus Bolton did. It says that health, the term health, includes a woman's physical health. Okay, but it didn't say how badly impaired her physical health had to be for it to be a problem. It includes her mental health. Okay, but again, how bad does her mental health have to be? I suppose I can imagine, I never saw one, but I can imagine a case of if a woman's going to have a psychotic break because of her pregnancy, that certainly seems like a severe mental health problem. How about she's under tremendous stress? How about, I just don't think I can cope with this pregnancy? That's mental health too. It includes her economic health. Whoa, how much money do you have to be economically healthy? Not defined. And if that wasn't enough, it includes her social health. What in blazes does that mean? What it means then when a politician says, I would be happy to support your bill so long as it has a health exception, translation, I would be happy to support your bill so long as it contains an exception so big that the bill is of no real practical effect. I can't understand why any woman would want to have a medical abortion. I'll explain.
I'm going to go into that. We saw that already. Before I move on, any comments on the video? I think it pretty much perfectly explains why it's never necessary to have an abortion to save the life of the mother. We used that video in RCIA. It was shown when I went through RCIA. And it was probably, like that discussion, in particular, like that video was really the turning point of me changing my mind. Because I was not sold on that when I started this process of coming into the church. Which goes back to the point where, you know, if we want to change minds, we have to find other ways to do it, which is what we're trying to show tonight. That video was extremely helpful and widely available on YouTube. Especially for those who are morally against it for themselves, but still pro-choice. So moving on, the next argument, baby is not viable or disabled. This is a big one. The main reason is that just because you have a disability doesn't justify ending a life. I understand that there are many times that someone is told, you know, your baby's not going to make it, or won't live after it's born, or et cetera, et cetera. There's tons of reasons why people will have an abortion when they hear that news. However, we also know that doctors and tests aren't always right, and while they should be used to prepare parents for what could happen if they carry the baby to term, it shouldn't be helping them decide whether or not they should. There are plenty of, Down syndrome test is a perfect example. They don't test for Down syndrome, they test for your risk of Down syndrome. And while that may change in the future, with our tests are becoming more, even since I had my youngest, the tests have become more and more accurate and clear. There's always a chance that it's wrong. Always a chance that it's wrong. Even with the blood Down syndrome test, the mother's extra chromosomes can be read. You know, God forbid they test the wrong blood. I mean, you don't know what could go into a test and whether or not it's coming out right. And that being said, Down syndrome shouldn't be a life sentence either. You know what I mean? It's simple. I mean, and I'm just talking about, you know, that's a very common uncommon disability that is being aborted these days. And yes, there are other ones that comes through that, you know, your babies that may die, or your baby may only live to be a year old, or, but that doesn't give the excuse to terminate them, because all it's doing, because we know in today's medicine, we can make people comfortable, we can make babies comfortable if they do have a horrible disability or disease. It's just making our lives easier to not have to deal with it as it goes on. Yeah, so brings us to the next point. Irretrievable defects can be grounds for abortion. There's tons of examples out there. Severe cleft palate, there's a story out there about everyone told him to abort their baby. He had very extreme cleft palate, needed a bunch of surgeries. He's a healthy 2-year-old now running around. He's probably like 4 now, but congenital heart abnormalities. Again, they're being able to perform surgeries on these babies in utero to fix these problems. It's not a reason, and there's other ones where, you know, your intestines are born on the outside, spina bifida, all these different things are becoming more and more treatable, and even if they're not, again, shouldn't be a death sentence, especially something like this. This is another one. Babies missing limbs. Okay, so they don't have an arm or a leg, or they don't have 2 legs. Again, it doesn't matter. It should not be a death sentence. So basically what we were talking about before, all babies deserve a chance of survival regardless of the inconvenience it may cause us. And bringing Down syndrome back into it, Iceland's almost eradicated Down syndrome. They had, I think their average is 2 Down syndrome births a year, because near 100% of the people who get tested for it and comes back positive, they are reported to babies. It is now what you do in Iceland, because it saves money, so they say. You know, people don't have to deal with it, etc. To me, that's, you know, that's basically, that's another type of genocide, if I got the right term down. But you're basically killing them, a whole group of
That is
people.
the right term.
Yeah, and I don't know about you. I mean, there's a little girl in my son's class that has Downs. They're so happy all the time.
Sweetest
So happy. I swear that they are like God's perfect soul. I
Exactly.
really do, because it's like they're happy. They're just happy. It's that extra, or that lack of the extra chromosome, I guess, that messes us up.
All these diseases that you talk about, how are we ever going to get physicians, or how are we ever going to treat or come up with cures for things if we're aborting them before that actually, you know, is ever a chance?
That is a very good point. So, and I know I'm going to move a little bit quickly because we're coming up to our hour. So how abortion laws can help. These ones kind of floored me. So mandatory, this is just a couple of them, okay? So mandatory counseling can help mothers understand the effects abortion may have on them. Pro-choice calls it, and I literally read this on a pro-choice groups, organizations, biased counseling. Whenever they talk about counseling, they say it's biased. I'm almost okay with them calling it biased because, yeah, we don't want you to have an abortion. If that makes me biased, then I guess it's biased. But it's looked down upon by the abortion industry. So, these states in light blue, including Connecticut, there is no mandatory counseling. You can walk in, not have a counselor, and just have an abortion without even being talked to about it, if they choose. I'm not saying that all the facilities that you walk into will do that, but they don't have to counsel you. And I don't even care if they're pushing an abortion. If you're not getting counseling after or before or after the abortion, that's just a disservice to any human being walking in there. Take the wrongness of the act out of it. In the blue, you have to counsel a person. You see a lot of those in here. These are the Midwestern Southern states. They all got it right. Counseling in person only, which is the even stricter one. Then these gray states, saying that laws are enjoined. Basically, when a law is enjoined, a lot of the abortion laws that are being tried to be passed. So if you hear something's passed, it doesn't mean it's in effect. It means it's held up in the courts. And there's no foreseeable future of it being not in the courts. So they can't enact it or they can't enforce it.
I never follow with mandatory anything, and also mandatory counseling. I want you to put a parenthood. I
You just have to
want
be
you
a
to
counselor.
trust the counselor who's
Exactly.
gonna sit with me.
This is a big one, the mandatory ultrasound. When this started coming out, I couldn't understand how people wouldn't think this is a good idea. Mandatory ultrasound laws help prove to the mother that this is a living, or a life that they're making a decision about. Why wouldn't you show somebody that? If they're making a decision, at least show them, right? It doesn't, to me, doesn't seem, rather, forget the hours of talking or counseling or whatever, just show them the picture, or the live stream of an ultrasound. Pro-Trace calls it a medically unnecessary procedure that is unethical and demeaning, and that's word for word right there. How that is unethical and demeaning, other than saying, hey, yeah, you might have made a bad choice and now you're going to probably make another bad choice, if that's the meaning, well, that's just...
You mean showing them the ultrasound?
Yeah, showing them the ultrasound, yeah, for making them have one, or hearing the heartbeat, or anything. So I'd like to bring up the next map.
Well, the movie showed you why they don't do
Yeah,
that.
the exact 100%.
It's a business, and they make money,
Just gonna
and it's
say.
greed.
A
100%.
huge amount of money, huge amount.
So this map, so gray states not mandatory. The only states that require an ultrasound and you have to show the mother the picture, or show the image, is Texas, Louisiana, and Wisconsin. Those are the only 3 states that require you to actually look at the living baby before you make, whether it's during your checkup or on the table, I don't know, but those are the only 3 states. So these ones are, you have to have it, and you have to offer to display the image. We can only hope that people will look at it, but they don't have to. And I'm sorry, but a scared woman in there, whatever age, is probably, my guess is they're not going to look. Then you've got, it's not mandatory, but if they do, they have to offer to show it. You've got those unenforceable laws right there, or enjoined laws. And then the other ones where it's, you just have to offer an ultrasound to these people that come in the door. So, and while showing an ultrasound image, if someone's hard pressed to get an abortion, they don't care, because there are those people out there who are using it as a form of birth control. I know someone personally who has had 9, at least, that we know of. They're not gonna, they might not change their minds, but the effect that it has on somebody who isn't sure, or is very, really struggling with what they're gonna do and doesn't feel right about it, because a lot of these girls go in there, they don't want to do it. They don't, they just don't feel like they have another choice. And to not give them counseling, require counseling, or not give them this other viewpoint, or to see the baby, their baby, when you have girls coming in like that, it really does help them make a different decision. It helps them make the right decision by seeing those pictures. So this is the type of law that I think would get the most people that are on the fence. And we have to start somewhere. I know we're a little bit past, but bear with me. This is a story of just that. This is only about 3 minutes.
I knew I was going to get an abortion until I saw my child on that screen. My name's Justine, 26 years old. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I am an alcoholic. I've been sober for a little over 2 years, and it's been the hardest 2 years of my life. But it's also been the happiest because she's in my life. In August of 2013, I found out that I was pregnant. I was with a guy who told me that he could not have children, so we were not safe at all. We researched free pregnancy tests, and the pregnancy clinic came up.
We're a nonprofit 501c3 organization that seeks to help women in unexpected pregnancies. We're evangelical in nature, and they'll call up and say, do you do abortions? I think I need an abortion. And we'll let them know that we are a full medical clinic, that we don't do abortions or refer for them. However, that we can do a free viability ultrasound for them. We want to make sure that they have full information because we don't have a vested financial interest in what they do.
We couldn't afford a pregnancy test. I don't know what pointed me in the direction of the pregnancy clinic because I clicked on a lot of different places.
We're here to listen to them, to hear what their story is, to hear what their situation is, and then to offer them help and hope that might show them a way out of that so they don't need to choose abortion.
My mind was set on abortion. I knew when I walked in this door the next day, that's what I was going to tell these people.
We believe that women are intelligent, they're bright, they're compassionate, they are carrying a life within them that often they are looking for a way out of a situation. But when they are actually able to see that life that's within them, that it's mind-changing for them.
We did the sonogram, and that baby was just so teeny tiny, and there was this little flicker, and the technician said that's your baby's heartbeat, and she pushed the button, and the whole room was filled with the sound of my baby's heartbeat, and it just took that 1 second, and my whole world changed. And now I have a beautiful 15-and-a-half-month-old daughter. If I hadn't gotten that sonogram, my daughter wouldn't be here. There's not a doubt in my mind, she wouldn't be here.
That's probably one of the most common situations, right? That kind of goes to show how those laws can help. So, what can you guys do to help? Any of us do to help? So definitely, we need to support women that are in difficult situations, right? These women need help, and that's why I think, and I've never been part of a prayer outside of a 40 Days to Life. I'm sure it's coming in my future. I mean, outside a clinic with an organization like that. But if you are at one of those things, or if it's, we have to help these women, right? We have to point them in the right direction. Whether we can actually help them ourselves or not, they need help. You can't just leave them, right? Become involved in local support centers. I know we have that baby battle draft going on right now. That's for St. Gianno's, right? Center?
Yeah.
So, you know, just supporting those centers is another thing to do to help these women. Support the laws that help end abortion. When these come through, I know the state we live in, it doesn't look up for us in trying to get these laws passed, right? But if there's anything that we can do to support these laws that come in, especially ones, like I said, starting from the bottom up, like just please have an ultrasound in the room, please give these people counseling. You know, just start there before we, you know, work our ways up. Even things that getting down to like, get it over 16 weeks, then bring up the heartbeat. Like, in my opinion, as much as I would like to say, it needs to end, it needs to end now, we have to find a viable way to get that message across. You know what I mean? That may just be started by getting that little hanging fruit to make decisions, inform people, have these conversations with people. In this way, don't be a brick wall. And I'm not saying that you are, but just don't try not to be one. And then pray. I mean, you saw what it did in the movie for, I mean, Texas in itself, say God bless Texas, one of my favorite country songs, but they're finding a way to make it work. They're really changing. There are laws that go through the amount of abortions that happen. I mean, things are going down. Pretending Texas is right here. They're somehow making it work. The don'ts. This is really something I want to focus on. Don't be afraid of the truth because of societal norms. That's where I was. Again, those people who say that they're morally against abortion for themselves, but they believe that women have the right to choose, this is why. I guarantee every single one of them, this is why. It was definitely a case for me. And when you're afraid of societal norms, that's how we end up where we are today with everything. being hypocritical in your pro-life stance. This is a big one. I really wanted to make this whole presentation all pro-life, but you cannot be pro-life and support end of life, suicide or euthanasia, and you cannot be pro-life and believe in the death penalty. And that's a big one, maybe not so much for Catholics in this room, but this is a big one for pro-lifers, because there are a lot of pro-lifers that believe in capital punishment. And while, yes, you can go back and say, yeah, well, you're talking about an innocent child versus a criminal that's done horrible things, you know, as a Catholic, you cannot be for capital punishment. I used to be a stereotypical Republican as well. It was, I believe in capital punishment. If you kill someone, you should be killed, and I don't believe in ending a baby's life. There's no two ways about it. That is a hypocritical statement. You can't make that statement and be taken seriously. If you want to be taken seriously, you have to value all life. Doesn't matter if it's, you know, two cells that just divided, or the worst person you can imagine, because, you know, our own faith and our own views, there could be some good that comes out of that person. You know, God can have a plan for them. There are plenty of stories of horrible people. We saw one in Alpha, whoever's at Alpha this year, there's new videos. We saw a video of that exact situation where someone, I don't necessarily think he was on death row, but he turned his life around and is making a difference now. There's inmates that are on death row that are making a difference right now by preaching the gospel, or, you know, trying to change other people's lives, not letting them bring in, and not letting them fall or get into the same place they're at. So this one's a big one for sure. Pro-life all the way. I wish I had another hour so we could get into those. Not that you want to listen to me for another hour.
You have to believe that.
You have to
right?
believe that.
Everyone has to have the chance
And
at
that's the
salvation.
argument that you have to have with other people who are pro-life who may not agree with you. You know what I mean? May not agree with that statement. They need to be on board with that as well. Not just if they're not Catholic, fine, you know, whatever. But they have, it just makes, if you're just for life in general, it makes your argument much more, it gives it much more weight. This last one, another really big one for me. Don't judge anybody. It doesn't, we can hate what they did, right? You can hate what someone did. Hate the, you know, what do they say? Hate the sin, not the sinner. It doesn't, I don't care if they just walk out of the abortion clinic, have an abortion. You can judge their action, don't judge them. They need help more than ever if that's what they chose. And to look at these people and not give them the love or support that they need, one, they may just go back and do it again. Two, where are they going to go now? You know what I mean? Where are they going to go now? Because they're probably at the lowest point of their life. Another big thing with, you know, with the judging, you don't know what everyone in this room's been. You don't know where I've got 3 little kids and a great family, but you don't know what I went through to get there. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I've done any of this, but I'm just saying you can look at all these people as well as you know them, and you don't know what crosses they're bearing. You don't know what they went through to be where they are today. So to have these conversations that we're having now with people that agree with you, you have to be careful in being judgmental about people, not about what they did, but about people, you know. And that's a really big one for me. That's my biggest thing when I'm talking to people in RCIA for a lot of the different scenarios that we come across. And that's it. So yes, I did reference the Bible a little bit here, right? So we do know, and like I said, I did change this up for this audience, knowing that more of you are probably all pro-life, right? And we know why, and we know the reasons. But this is probably one of the best quotes in the Bible for it. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. And yes, that was to Jeremiah, but we also know this is to all of us. So with that, and this is actually going to hit 20 weeks. This is a 20-week ultrasound. Again, still legal for abortion.
Andrea, if someone wanted to pray, just for example, for if you wanted to go and pray with this 40 Days for Life, there's 2 going on right now in Connecticut, one in Danbury and one in Bridgeport at the Planned Parenthood. So if you look at the 40 Days for Life, you can find that stuff out. There's also one in New Haven, often by the God's Precious Helpers for Infants for Life at Planned Parenthood on Whitney Avenue in New Haven on Saturday mornings usually. But basically what we do, I've been to these, I've been one in Hartford and one in Bridgeport. You just go outside, say the rosary for half an hour, 15 minutes, whatever. You can stay for as long as you want. The times usually are like 9 to noon on Saturday, but they are every day of the week from like 9 or 10 in the morning till 5 at night. So those are available. It's on their website, 40 Days for Life.
That sounds good. Thank you for that information. And yeah, and I know there's been talk around too. I mean, I think we could definitely, you know, trying to form groups to kind of become more involved. I know Carrie, we've talked about the child, we've talked about that. I think there might be some opportunities coming up if some of us have anything to say about it. So keep your ears out, or eyes out. But does anyone have anything? I know I went 15 minutes late. I'm sorry.
Andrea, I was just thinking as you were talking, what goes on in the high school? What are girls, teenage girls, actually learning in biology, health? And when they go to the nurse, what is the nurse telling them? And I think, you know, this is an area that just came to my mind as you were speaking, because I don't know if these girls, these teenage girls, are really educated to this side.
I don't know if their parents are educated, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I would go along with that, because there was a couple of things that I remember. I remember my pre-Cana conference way back in 1964. The priest, I remember telling us, the men, that if a situation occurred where the mother's life is in danger, they save the baby.
Yep.
And I remember that one specifically, and then I remember the movie The Cardinal, which goes way back, 1960, I'm gonna just guess. And it's the same type of situation where the baby is saved and the mother is allowed to
It's
die.
not, I guarantee you it's not the case.
Yeah, I know, but that's, you know, and I was just thinking too, that you're talking here, using the word life. I remember way back when I was in high school, it was the word embryo. And embryo applies to animals, flowers, and, you know, not necessarily a human being.
Yep.
So I just wanted to bring those up.
I think, no, but you bring up a good point. It's our job to educate people, right? We can't, especially our kids, so anyone our, you know, my age, you know, or grandkids, or what have you, you can't rely on school, the morality of the country anymore, because it's very limited at this point, to teach the kids. They're not going to know unless we tell them. Parents my age are not going to know unless we tell them. I can tell you right now, there are many people my age who have no idea that this is like that, you know, and I'm in my mid-30s. They should know. They should know. They don't know. They don't know because they don't want to know. I think is mostly the thing, is mostly the reason. But if we can have these conversations with them and show them why, a lot of them will come around and then they're going to relay that message, you know, to our future generations. And that's the only way it's the only way we can do it in this day and age for now. Maybe it'll change. I don't know. But with that, I'm going to stop talking. So Sunday night, I got to wake up early for work. But
If you have a good feed on your Facebook, like Alicia, you get really good pictures like this and forward them to all your contacts, and just let people know that.
yeah, maybe I'll listen to this one. I know you do. It's a good idea. It's funny because I use my Twitter for my Catholic Christian stuff, and I have my Facebook as my neutrality zone, but it started to weave its way in. It's just one of those things with not caring about what society thinks, and I really am starting not to care anymore. I'm sure the same is true with the rest of you.
Like every young couple that I know, and I know quite a few nieces and nephews, when they make their pregnancy announcement, now attach the picture of the ultrasound. So they're understanding it, and hopefully they're people they said that do 100 of their friends.
It's crazy the difference between the attitude towards unwanted pregnancy and unwanted pregnancy.
Yes.
You know, with all the so-called education that they're providing these kids in school, sex education, they'll go through the trouble of showing them how to properly apply a condom.
Yeah.
And pass them out even.
Yeah.
But they're not providing ultrasound. I mean, we've got to figure out a way to work that into the curriculum.
No, you're 100%
Because
right.
that will put a seed early on and perhaps even prevent a bad choice.
You know, if we get our kids to follow the teachings, right, they'll never be put in this situation to begin with. I mean, and I know it's not as easier said than done, but, you know, that's the standard, that's the path that we have to take, is to try to do that. Because, again, they're going to go to school and get information they shouldn't be getting, so.
Sometimes, just like if you go in a more gentle way, like in the past we've had, like baby showers in church, or a diaper drive or something. And then you have available a little brochure with, not with the real graphic pictures, but just with the facts of life.
Yeah.
And then we all bring in things and donate them to, St. John or whatever. And it just puts, someone's gonna see that and maybe think twice.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And they actually said today, they actually said in the movie that, they lose up to 75% of their comments how people are out there praying. Because it makes people think. So,